Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso at thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Reach out to me directly, tmosso at thewatchbox.com. Today we're launching a vintage-inspired diver that launched at Basel World 2014. The Seamaster 300 is the most overtly vintage-inspired model in the sprawling Seamaster water-resistant sports watch family. The timepiece evokes the original 1957 CK2913 Seamaster 300, quite literally, though with modern dive watch fit, finish, and technology. The watch is stainless steel and Sedna red gold with a very simple, minimally beveled, no-guard case. It's 41 millimeters in diameter. Two ways to measure the thickness here. 15 millimeters without the strap, but with the NATO style strap, the thickness is about 17.7 millimeters. Lug-to-lug, 48.1 millimeters, and perhaps betraying the modern origins of this specific design, a 21 millimeter spacing between the lugs. I'm going to throw this on my wrist, but it's going to look a little bit different on a NATO strap. It rides higher, it's broader across the wrist. I can recommend this watch on a conventional strap for a wrist as small as 13.5 centimeters circumference, but just know that if you do wear it on the NATO, it is going to be a broader and thicker timepiece, less likely to shy under a cuff. It stands proud of the wrist. It's an impressive sight, and if you like that NATO technical look, this is definitely it. The watch has probably the best NATO strap you're going to encounter from any brand. Taking a quick look here, you can see it's striated in two different tones. It has metal hardware, and not just metal hardware, but branded metal hardware, as this is an Omega factory NATO. You also don't have to worry about the loop and crimp of a traditional NATO strap, as this works essentially like a conventional pin buckle, and it has conventional pin buckle apertures on the opposite side. It is, however, underslung, which means you're not going to be able to see the movement unless you remove the strap. And since I have considerable experience removing these things on the spot for the viewing pleasure of our audience, I'm going to quickly remove this strap and show you what the movement looks like. Caliber 8400 normally comes after my analysis of the case and the dial, but looks like this one has a little bit of adhesive from a sticker on the reverse side. Let's take a quick look at the movement since we went through all the trouble to remove that strap. Caliber 8400. Despite the fact that this is a simple three-hand dial, this is not the standard 8800 movement. This is based on the 8500s, which means it has the time zone feature for the hour hand, the twin mainspring barrels, and the 60, not a 55-hour power reserve. 38 joules bidirectional automatic winding, 60-hour power reserve, twin mainspring barrels, so it's good at retaining its amplitude after, for example, 24 hours. A single barrel movement will generally lose a lot of amplitude after the first 24 hours, not with two barrels. Hacking or stop seconds, it has that time zone function that I should demonstrate, because if you haven't seen this, you don't know what I'm talking about. It is a very handy feature. Note the watch continues to keep time. The seconds and the minutes hands are unaffected. It is a very useful feature for travelers. It beats away at the quirky co-axial specific 25,200 vibration per hour beat rate. It's adjusted in 5 positions and is a COSC chronometer. The coaxial escapement here is the George Daniels developed system that seemed hyper exotic in 1999, and even today is probably the most exotic escapement you can buy under $40,000. The full balance bridge and free sprung index make it shock tolerant, and the silicone hairspring makes it highly anti-magnetic to the point of amagnetic resistance. The timepiece, of course, is combined steel and red gold. The red gold is what Omega calls Sedna. It has a high percentage of copper to make it redder than rose, and then a high percentage of platinum to avoid fading. It is the technical equivalent and aesthetic equivalent of Rolex's Ever Rose. The watch, as you can see, is 300 meters water resistant, and as a 300-meter diver with a screw-down crown and a unidirectional bezel, you could use this vintage-inspired watch for diving if you so choose. As with the original CKs, there is absolutely no crown guard structure, minimal beveling, the lugs are squared off, and this is fairly authentic with quarter Arabic numerals and a dial that, if you take a close look, actually has more in common with the Panerai sandwich dials in its three-dimensional construction than it does with just about anything else in the Omega catalog. Now, the bezel is red gold, the insert is ceramic, and then the gold inside the ceramic is what Omega calls Ceragold. The gold is permanently bonded to the scratch-resistant ceramic. Let's hear the detent. I have to say, this is the best detent in Omega's catalog. In terms of how this dive bezel feels, the relatively small coining of the bezel is a sharper and easier to grip knurling than you'll find on the Planet Oceans or the Diver 300s. And with the combination of the sapphire and the ceramic insert, you've got a lot of heat shields for your watch to effectively shield it from scratches and scuffs, as the ceramic bezel insert and the sapphire are going to take most of the hits. You have this vintage-inspired broad arrow hour hand, and then you have this lovely faded lume, which actually works well here. I'm not generally a fan of Fotina, but it's a nice complementary tone alongside the rose gold. The dial, of course, is matte black, as the originals would have been, and as you can see, there's a combination of polish and satin on the case. This is a modern dive watch. It qualifies in every regard. It meets the ISO 6425, but is also highly evocative, impressively powered by a movement used by no other Swatch Group family. This timepiece is an extraordinary find, a vintage watch that works like a modern watch. And with the style having lasted since 1957, it's got the look to go the distance. And we're back with the Seamaster 300. You can see all three hands loomed in differential lume color for the bezel pearl and the minute hand, so you can easily distinguish them in the dark or during a dive. Email tmosso@thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.